Ambassador Taemin Park walked slowly through the long halls of Nexus Prime Station. His black shoes made soft sounds on the smooth metal floor. The station was huge, bigger than any human city. It floated in space between the stars, a place where different alien races could meet safely. Taemin had been here for 3 months now, 3 long months of talking, arguing, and trying to make peace. His hair had more gray in it than when he first arrived. The stress showed on his face, but he kept his expression calm. He had to. Too much was at stake. Behind him walked Admiral Sora Kim. She wore her blue uniform with pride. The medals on her chest told stories of many battles. Her presence here was not an accident. The human government wanted the aliens to remember that Earth had teeth, even if they chose not to show them often. They entered the main meeting room. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. In the center sat a round table made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. Around the table sat the representatives of 7 different alien races. The Vexthari were the most frightening to look at. They looked like giant insects, with 4 arms and hard shells covering their bodies. Their ambassador was a queen named Zithara. She was twice as tall as any human, and her black eyes never blinked. Wenbawan. She moved. Her 4 arms clicked and scraped against each other. Next to them sat the Luminar. They were not solid like humans or the Vexthari. Instead, they were made of pure energy, glowing and shifting like living lightning. They spoke through machines that turned their energy patterns into words. Their leader called himself Bright Flame, though humans were never sure if that was really a name or just a description. The Drakmor looked the most like humans, if humans had been crossed with lizards. They had green scales and yellow eyes with long slits for pupils. Their ambassador, Gorthak, always sat very straight and spoke in a voice that reminded Taemin of a snake. The Drakmor claimed to be the oldest race in the galaxy, though nobody could prove it. There were 4 other races at the table, but these 3 led the coalition against humanity. They had formed an alliance specifically to deal with what they called the human problem. Taemin took his seat. The chair was made for human size, one of the few concessions the aliens had made to comfort. Sora sat beside him, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. It was a small gesture, but everyone in the room noticed it. "We will continue where we left off yesterday," said Zithara. Her voice came through a translator box, making her words sound cold and mechanical. "Humanity must answer for its crimes against galactic law." Taemin sighed quietly. They had been over this same ground dozens of times. "We have committed no crimes. We have followed every treaty we signed. We have respected every boundary that was clearly marked." "You expand like a plague," hissed Gorthak. "In 50 years, you have spread to 12 star systems. You take worlds. That should be buffer zones between civilized races." "We take empty worlds," Admiral Sora said calmly. "Worlds with no intelligent life. Worlds that no one else wanted until we made them valuable." Bright Flame flickered brighter, a sign of anger, among his people. "You do not understand the delicate balance of galactic politics. These buffer zones exist for good reasons. They prevent conflicts between older, wiser races." "Older, perhaps," Sora replied. "The wisdom part is debatable. The temperature in..." The room seemed to drop. Several aliens made threatening gestures. Taemin held up his hand to calm everyone down. "Let us not trade insults," he said. "We are here to find a solution that works for everyone." In the corner of the room, Hyunwoo Lee sat quietly taking notes. He was officially listed as a trade representative, but his real job was much more important. He watched everything, listened to everything, and reported back to Earth about what he saw and heard. Hyunwoo had noticed several troubling things over the past few weeks. The aliens were coordinating their responses too well. They spoke in patterns that suggested they had planned their arguments in advance. More worrying, some of the more reasonable alien voices had stopped coming to the meetings. Only the hardliners remained. He also noticed the small devices some aliens wore on their clothing. The devices looked like decorations, but Hyunwoo suspected they were communicators. The aliens were talking to each other during the meetings, sharing information and strategies in real time. "We have a proposal," Taemin said, opening a folder in front of him. Humanity is willing to accept a 20-year pause on expansion beyond our current borders. In exchange, we want guaranteed trading rights to 15 star systems and protection for our existing colonies. Ji-Hai Choi, who led the human trade delegation, stood up to explain the details. She was young for such an important job, but she knew more about galactic economics than most aliens twice her age. This proposal would benefit everyone, she said. Human colonies produce food, minerals, and manufactured goods that many alien worlds need. Our technology can help solve resource problems on dozens of planets. All we ask is fair payment and safe passage for our ships. The aliens listened in silence. Zith-Ara's mandibles clicked quietly, a sound that humans had learned meant she was thinking. Gorthic's tail, which had been still, began to move back and forth slowly. Bright flame dimmed and brightened in a pattern that might have been consideration. Finally, Zith-Ara stood up. Her forearms spread wide, making her look even more enormous and threatening. "Your species is a disease," she said. Her translator made the words sound even more harsh. "You multiply too fast. You consume everything you touch. You change worlds to suit yourselves instead of adapting to what exists." "You are barbarians pretending to be civilized," added Gorthak. "You have no respect for the natural order of things. You think strength gives you the right to take whatever you want." Bright Flame's energy form pulsed with angry red light. "The galaxy was peaceful before your kind learned to travel between stars. We will not allow you to corrupt what we have built over millions of years." Taemin felt his patience finally break. "Corrupt? We have fought no wars of conquest. We have enslaved no alien populations. We have committed no genocides. Can all of you say the same?" The silence that followed was heavy and dangerous. Every alien in the room knew the answer to that question. Each of their races had bloody histories. The Vexithari had enslaved entire star systems. The Drakmor had wiped out 3 different species they considered inferior. Even the peaceful-seeming Luminar had destroyed civilizations by draining the energy from their stars. Humans, for all their expansion, had never done anything close to these crimes. "That is irrelevant," Zith-Ara said finally. "What matters is what you might do, not what you have done. Your potential for destruction is too great to ignore." "So you judge us guilty of crimes we have not committed," So-Ra said. "How very civilized of you." "We have made our decision," Gorthak announced. "Humanity has 72 hours to begin evacuating all colonies beyond your home system. Any humans found on disputed worlds after that time will be considered invaders and dealt with accordingly." "And if we refuse?" Taemin asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we will remove you ourselves," Zith-Ara replied. "The combined fleets of 7 races are already moving into position. You cannot stand against us all." Hyunwoo stopped taking notes. His hand moved instinctively toward the small communicator hidden in his jacket. This information needed to reach Earth immediately. Taemin stood up slowly. "Then these talks are over?" "Yes," said Gorthak with obvious satisfaction. "They are." As the human delegation left the meeting room, Hyunwoo caught sight of alien military officers entering through a side door. They carried data tablets and wore the insignia of fleet commanders. The aliens were not just making threats. They were planning an actual invasion. Walking back through the station's corridors, Taemin felt the weight of failure on his shoulders. He had tried everything to avoid this moment, but the aliens had never intended to negotiate seriously. They had used the talks as a delay tactic while they assembled their forces. "Admiral," he said quietly to So-Ra, "I think it's time to send that message we discussed." So-Ra nodded grimly. "The one marked Plan 7? "Yes. Tell them the talks have failed and the aliens have declared their intentions. Earth needs to know that diplomacy is no longer an option." As their shuttle prepared to leave Nexus Prime Station, Hyunwoo uploaded his final report. In it, he detailed everything he had observed about alien preparations, fleet movements, and military capabilities. More importantly, he confirmed what Earth's intelligence services had suspected. This had always been a trap. The aliens had never intended to coexist peacefully with humanity. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it grew too strong to stop. The peace talks had been nothing more than a way to keep humans distracted while alien fleets moved into attack positions. But the aliens had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that humans were as naive as they pretended to be. They thought that 50 years of peaceful expansion meant humans were soft and unprepared for war. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Captain Minho Sung was checking star charts on the bridge of his destroyer when the emergency message came through. The ship's communication officer, a young woman named Hei Rin, looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a priority alpha message from Earth Command." Minho felt his stomach tighten. Priority alpha meant only one thing. War was coming. He had been expecting this message for weeks, but it still hit him like a punch to the gut. "Put it through to my ready room," he ordered, "and set the ship to combat readiness." Quietly. The message was short and direct. The peace talks had failed. Alien fleets were moving toward human space. All military vessels were to proceed to designated rally points immediately. Most importantly, Protocol 7 was now active. Minho had heard whispers about Protocol 7 during his years in the fleet, but he had never been told what it meant. Only the highest-ranking officers knew the details. All he knew was that it involved weapons and tactics that were normally forbidden. His ship, the Sejong, was a fairly typical human destroyer. It carried standard missile launchers, plasma cannons, and defensive shields. Compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts, it was like a rowboat next to a battleship. But Minho had been ordered to report to Luna Base, not to any normal military installation. Luna Base was different. It was hidden, on the far side of Earth's moon, where alien spy satellites could not see it. Most humans did not even know it existed. The base was where Earth's government kept its most dangerous secrets. Dr. Yujin Nam had been working in Laboratory 7 for 15 years. She was one of the few people on Luna Base who knew exactly what Protocol 7 meant. As emergency lights flashed throughout the facility, she began opening sealed storage containers that had not been touched in decades. The first container held quantum cascade torpedoes. They looked like normal missiles, but inside them was technology that could tear apart the bonds holding atoms together. A single torpedo could destroy a battleship by unraveling its matter at the subatomic level. The second container was even more frightening. It held gravitational wave generators, devices that could create artificial black holes or twist space-time into knots. Ships caught in their effects would be crushed like paper in a giant's fist. The third container made Yujin pause. Inside were biological weapons designed to target specific alien species. These pathogens could rewrite DNA, shut down nervous systems, or turn an alien's own immune system against them. Even Yujin, who had helped create them, was disturbed by their potential. "Dr. Nam," called her assistant, Bo Ra. "General Jang is requesting an immediate briefing on all Project 7 assets." Yujin nodded. It was time to show the military what 15 years of secret research had produced. General Wu Sung-Jang stood in a room that officially did not exist. The chamber was buried deep beneath Seoul, protected by enough armor and shielding to survive. A direct hit from an orbital bombardment cannon. Around the table sat 20 of Earth's most senior military officers and scientists. "Ladies and gentlemen," the general began, "the aliens have forced our hand. They demand that we abandon our colonies and accept permanent containment within the Sol system. They have given us 72 hours to comply or face military action." A murmur ran around the table. Everyone had expected this moment, but it was still shocking to hear it confirmed. "For 50 years, Jang continued, we have played by their rules. We have accepted their treaties, honored their boundaries, and submitted to their restrictions on our military development. They mistake our restraint for weakness. Today, they learn the price of that mistake." The first briefing came from engineer Dong-Hyun Park. He activated a holographic display showing a device that looked like a metal sphere covered in complex geometric patterns. "Gravitational wave generators," he explained. "These devices can create localized distortions in space-time itself. We can generate artificial gravity wells, temporal loops, or dimensional tears. Enemy fleets will find their own movement turned against them." The military officers stared at the display in amazement. Such technology seemed almost magical. "How many do we have operational?" asked Admiral Yang. 47 units," Donghyun replied. Each one capable of affecting a cubic, light minute of space. The next presentation came from Dr. Yoonji Song, the head of the Biological Warfare Division. Her display showed microscopic organisms that looked like tiny robots. These are programmable viruses, she explained. Each one is designed to target specific alien physiologies. The Vexthari version attacks their nervous system, making them unable to feel aggression or fear. The Drakmor variant rewrites their genetic code, turning them into a peaceful agricultural species. The Luminar pathogen disrupts their energy patterns, essentially erasing their consciousness. Several officers looked uncomfortable. Biological warfare was considered barbaric by most humans, but these were not normal times. The delivery systems? Asked General Zhang. Atmospheric seeding missiles, contact transmission through ship surfaces, or aerosol dispersal from stealth drones. Once released, the organisms self-replicate and spread through entire fleets within hours. Intelligence Officer Sung-Hoon Kwon stepped forward for the final briefing. His presentation showed star charts, marked with hundreds of red dots. For the past 30 years, he said, we have been placing deep cover agents throughout alien space. Not spies in the traditional sense, but humans who have integrated into alien societies and governments. We know their fleet positions, supply, lines, command structures, and military capabilities in real time. The red dots on the chart represented human assets embedded in alien governments, military commands, and industrial facilities. There were thousands of them. When the shooting starts, Sung-Hoon continued, we will know exactly where to hit them and when. They will be fighting blind while we see everything. Captain Minho arrived at Luna Base to find controlled chaos. Hundreds of ships were docking, taking on new weapons and equipment that he had never seen before. His destroyer was upgraded with quantum torpedo launchers, gravitational shield generators, and stealth systems that made the ship nearly invisible to sensors. The technician installing the new weapons was a woman named Hyun A. She explained the systems while she worked. The quantum torpedoes don't just explode, she said. They unravel the target's molecular structure. The gravitational shields don't just deflect attacks, they redirect them back at the attacker. And the stealth system doesn't just hide you from sensors, it makes you invisible to the naked eye as well. Minho watched his familiar ship being transformed into something alien and frightening. How long have these weapons existed? Some of them for decades, Hyani replied. We've been preparing for this war since the day we first met the aliens. We just hoped we would never need to use them. Back on Earth, Ambassador Taemin received a message from Nexus Prime Station. The alien coalition was demanding an immediate response to their ultimatum. They wanted to know if humanity would comply with their demands or face the consequences. Taemin composed a simple reply. Humanity rejects your ultimatum. We will not abandon our colonies or accept containment. If you wish to remove us by force, you are welcome to try. The message was transmitted across the galaxy within hours. On dozens of alien worlds, military commanders and political leaders received the same simple statement. Most of them laughed when they read it. Humanity had always been the weakest species in known space. Their defiance seemed like the desperate posturing of a cornered animal. They had no idea what they had just awakened. Dr. Yujin stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching as the first wave of human ships departed for their assigned positions. These were not the defensive formations the aliens expected. Instead, human fleets were moving to predetermined attack coordinates, using classified jump routes that alien intelligence had never discovered. Are we really going to do this? Asked her assistant Bora. Use weapons this terrible? Yujin looked at the tactical displays showing alien fleets moving toward human space. 3,000 ships from 7 different races, armed with enough firepower to sterilize entire planets. They came not to conquer, but to exterminate. They made the choice, Yujin replied. They could have accepted coexistence. They could have honored the peace talks. Instead, they chose genocide. Now they live with the consequences. General Zhang received confirmation that all human fleets were in position. The aliens expected to find scattered defensive forces protecting human colonies. Instead, they would find empty space and invisible death waiting for them. The alien armada was impressive by any measure. Vexthari hive ships the size of cities. Drakmor battle cruisers that could crack continents with their main guns. luminar energy vessels that could drain the power from entire planets. Together, they represented the combined military might of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, but they had never faced an enemy that had spent 50 years preparing specifically to fight them. They had never encountered weapons that ignored their shields, tactics that turned their strengths into weaknesses, or strategies based on complete knowledge of their capabilities and limitations. As the alien fleets jumped toward their targets, automated beacons throughout human space began transmitting a simple message on all frequencies. The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace in the Kepler 4042 system like a metal storm. 3,000 ships of various sizes and designs spread across space in a formation that had taken months to plan. The smallest vessels were larger than human destroyers, while the largest dreadnoughts dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Admiral Kethvar of the Vexthari stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Swarm. Through the viewing ports, he could see the rest of the Allied fleet taking positions. Drakmor battlecruisers with their distinctive curved hulls, luminar energy ships that glowed like small stars. 4 other Allied species had contributed vessels to this grand fleet. "Scan for human forces," Kethvar ordered his tactical officer. The Vexthari had expected to find the human fleet waiting for them in defensive positions around the system's inhabited planets. Instead, their sensors showed only empty space. "No contacts, Admiral," reported the tactical officer, a younger Vexthari whose mandibles clicked nervously. "The system appears to be abandoned." On the Drakmor flagship Serpent's Fang, Commander Silthon hissed in frustration. "Where are they hiding?" he demanded. "Humans are too proud to abandon their colonies without a fight." The Luminar fleet commander, known as Voidzinger, pulsed with confused energy patterns. His ship's sensors were the most advanced in the fleet, capable of detecting the smallest energy signatures across vast distances, yet they found nothing. "Perhaps they have withdrawn to their core systems," suggested Admiral Golzeth of the Tarkin Confederation. "They may be planning a final stand at Earth itself." Kethvar was not convinced. Human behavior patterns suggested they would defend their outer colonies fiercely. Their absence here meant something else was happening, something the Allied intelligence services had not predicted. "Spread the fleet in search formation," he ordered. "Begin sweeping the system methodically. They must be here somewhere." What the aliens did not know was that the human fleet was indeed present in the system. Fleet Admiral Jae-Sung Yu watched their movements from the bridge of his flagship, the dreadnought Incheon. Thanks to quantum stealth technology, his entire fleet was completely invisible to alien sensors. "They're spreading out just as predicted," reported his tactical officer, Commander He-Jin. "Their formation is becoming more vulnerable by the minute." Jae-Sung nodded. Human strategy for this battle had been planned years in advance. Every possible alien response had been studied and countered. The enemy's search pattern would bring them directly into the trap humanity had prepared. "Signal all ships," Jae-Sung ordered. "Begin Phase 1 on my mark." Captain Minho waited aboard his destroyer Sejong, which hung invisible in space just 50 kilometers from a Vexthari heavy cruiser. His crew was silent and focused, their hands hovering over controls for weapons the enemy could not even imagine. "Target locked," whispered his weapons officer, Sujin. The quantum cascade torpedo was armed and ready. Unlike traditional weapons that destroyed ships through explosion or impact, this device would unmake its target at the molecular level. "Fire," Minho ordered quietly. The torpedo launched without any visible flash or energy signature. To alien sensors, nothing had happened. The weapon moved through space like a ghost, its quantum field generator creating no detectable emissions. It struck the Vexithari cruiser's hull and simply disappeared. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, reality began to unravel. The ship's metal hull started dissolving as molecular bonds broke apart. Atmosphere leaked out through holes that appeared from nothing. Emergency alarms blared as the crew tried to understand what was happening to their vessel. Within minutes, the entire cruiser had been reduced to its component atoms, which scattered into space like glittering dust. 800 Vexithari warriors died without ever seeing their killer or understanding how they had been destroyed. Across the alien formation, similar attacks began simultaneously. Captain Haijin Ryu commanded a stealth frigate that specialized in gravitational warfare. Her target was a cluster of Drakmor destroyers that had moved close together in their search pattern. "Deploy gravitational mines," she ordered. Her ship released devices that looked like metal spheres covered in complex geometric patterns. The mines drifted silently toward the alien ships, invisible to their sensors. When they reached optimal positions, they activated. Space itself began to bend and twist around the Drakmor vessels. Artificial gravity wells appeared from nowhere, grabbing ships and flinging them into each other at tremendous speeds. The destroyer's own momentum became their enemy, as gravitational forces turned their formation into a collision course with itself. Two ships slammed together so hard that both hulls cracked open like eggs. A third destroyer was caught in a gravity loop that spun it faster and faster until centrifugal force tore it apart. The fourth tried to escape, but found itself trapped in a gravitational maze that made movement impossible. Commander Jenna Park commanded a squadron of biological warfare vessels. Her target was the Vexthari section of the fleet. The insectoid aliens were particularly vulnerable to humanity's most disturbing weapons. "Release the carriers," she ordered. Invisible drones launched from her ships, each one carrying billions of engineered viruses. The pathogens had been designed specifically for Vexthari physiology, programmed to infiltrate their nervous systems and rewrite their brain chemistry. The drones approached Vexthari ships and attached themselves to hull surfaces. Microscopic drill bits bored through armor plating, allowing the viruses to enter the ship's atmospheric systems. Within minutes, the biological agents were spreading through the air ducts and life support systems. The effect was not immediately visible. Vexthari warriors continued their duties normally for several hours. But gradually, something fundamental changed in their behavior. The species that had built an empire through conquest and aggression found themselves unable to feel hostile emotions. Admiral Kethvar was the first to notice something wrong when his tactical officer began questioning orders. "Sir," the younger Vexthari said, "perhaps we should consider withdrawing from this system. Violence seems unnecessary when we could simply talk to the humans." Kethvar stared at his subordinate in shock. No Vexthari had ever suggested avoiding a fight. Their species was built for war, lived for combat, and died in battle as a matter of honor. Yet here was a warrior suggesting peaceful negotiation. Similar scenes played out across the Vexthari fleet as the biological weapons spread. Warriors laid down their weapons, gunners refused to fire on targets, ship captains began broadcasting messages of peace and friendship to empty space, hoping humans would hear and respond. The Luminar faced a different horror entirely. Captain Seok Jin Kim commanded a squadron equipped with consciousness disruptors, weapons that targeted the electromagnetic frequencies that housed Luminar awareness. "Target the energy being's core frequencies," he ordered his weapons officer. "Prepare to fire disruption pulses." The Luminar existed as patterns of living energy contained within specialized ship hulls. Their consciousness was essentially electromagnetic in nature, which made them vulnerable to frequency-based attacks that could shatter their awareness like glass. The disruption pulses fired silently, invisible beams that crossed space at light speed. When they struck Luminar vessels, the effect was immediate and horrifying. The energy beings inside simply stopped existing as coherent entities. Voidzinger felt his consciousness fragmenting as the pulse hit his ship. His thoughts scattered. Like leaves in a hurricane, his memories dissolved into random electrical noise. Within seconds, one of the most advanced minds in the galaxy became nothing more than incoherent energy patterns drifting through space. Across the Luminar formation, ship after ship went dark as their crews were essentially erased from existence. The vessels remained intact, but they were now nothing more than empty metal shells drifting through space. Admiral Jae Sung watched the tactical display as alien fleet strength dropped rapidly. In less than an hour, humanity had destroyed or neutralized nearly half of the invasion force without revealing a single ship. "Phase 2, he ordered. "Reveal our positions and begin conventional engagement." Throughout the human fleet, stealth systems deactivated. Suddenly, alien sensors detected hundreds of human vessels that had been hiding in plain sight. But these were not the small destroyers and frigates the aliens expected. Human shipyards had been busy during the years of peace talks. The Incheon and her sister ships were massive dreadnoughts that rivaled the largest alien vessels. They mounted weapons that human science had previously considered too dangerous to deploy. Quantum armor made them nearly invulnerable to conventional attacks. Reality-bending engines allowed them to move in ways that seemed to violate physics. "All ships," Jae-sung broadcast, "you are authorized to engage with maximum force. Show them what happens when they threaten human children." The remaining alien ships tried to fight back, but they were facing technology and tactics completely outside their experience. Human vessels moved through space like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons ignored shields, armor, and defensive systems that had protected alien fleets for centuries. Commander Silthan of the Serpent's Fang tried to target a human cruiser with his ship's main guns. News of the Kepler 442 disaster spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On a dozen alien homeworlds, military commanders stared at reports that seemed impossible to believe. The largest war fleet ever assembled had been destroyed in a single day by the species they had dismissed as primitives. Ambassador Tae-min Park found himself in an unusual position 3 days later. The same aliens who had issued ultimatums at Nexus Prime now begged him to return for emergency talks. The desperation in their messages was obvious, even through translation programs. He sat in his shuttle approaching the station, reading the latest intelligence reports. Admiral So-ra Kim sat across from him, her expression grim as she reviewed the tactical analysis from Kepler 442. 200 ships out of 3,000, she said quietly, and those only survived because we let them escape to carry the message home. "The aliens are calling it impossible," Tae-min replied. "Their scientists claim our weapons violate known physics. Their military experts insist no force that size could be defeated so quickly." "Good," So-ra said with satisfaction. "Let them struggle to understand. Fear of the unknown is often more effective than fear of the known." They docked at Nexus Prime to find the station in chaos. Alien delegations that had been arrogant just days before now moved with nervous energy. Security forces that had once barely acknowledged human presence now watched every human movement with obvious anxiety. The main conference room had been reconfigured. Instead of the previous circular arrangement that suggested equality, the humans now sat at the head of a traditional rectangular table. The alien representatives sat across from them like defendants waiting for judgment. Zithara of the Vexthari looked different. The biological weapon released at Kepler 442 had spread to her homeworld through returning ships. Even she, the warrior queen who had once threatened humanity's extinction, now spoke of peace and cooperation with genuine enthusiasm that was chemically enforced. "Ambassador Park," she said, her mandibles clicking in what humans had learned, was an expression of submission. "We must find a way to coexist peacefully. Violence serves no one's interests." Gorthak of the Drakmor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His yellow eyes, once full of reptilian coldness, now held obvious fear. "The reports from Kepler 442, surely there has been some mistake. No species possesses such advanced weapons." Bright flame of the Luminar flickered nervously. His people had lost nearly a quarter of their consciousness-bearing population in a single battle. The survivors spoke of human weapons that could erase a being from existence without leaving any trace. Tae-min opened the folder in front of him. Inside were documents that would reshape the galactic order forever. "There has been no mistake," he said calmly. "Your fleets attacked human space with the stated intention of committing genocide. We defended ourselves using methods we had hoped never to employ." Strategic analyst Mi Young Choi stood to present the first set of documents. She was young, barely 30, but her intelligence briefings had helped plan humanity's response to the alien threat. "For the past 30 years," she began, "humanity has maintained extensive intelligence networks throughout alien space. We know the location of every major military installation, the production capacity of every shipyard, and the command structure of every alien government." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy in stunning detail. Red markers indicated human intelligence assets. There were thousands of them, spread across hundreds of worlds. "We know that the Vexthari Empire maintains a reserve. Fleet of 800 ships at the Nexus yards," Mi Young continued. "We know that Drakmor military doctrine relies on frontal assaults that become predictable after initial contact. We know that Luminar energy beings require specific electromagnetic frequencies to maintain consciousness." The aliens stared at the display in shock. Secrets they thought were perfectly hidden had been known to humanity for decades. We also know, Mi-young added quietly, that several alien governments are currently planning secondary attacks on human colonies, believing that our victory at Kepler 442 was some kind of trick that cannot be repeated. General Wu Sung-jang stepped forward to address this last point. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who held overwhelming force in his hands. "I want to be very clear about something," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Kepler 442 was not humanity using our full capabilities. It was humanity using our most restrained options. We have weapons in our arsenal that make what you witnessed there look like children playing with toys. He activated another display showing technical specifications that made no sense to alien scientists. Stellar collapse bombs that could destroy entire star systems. Dimensional warfare devices that could erase planets from existence by shifting them into parallel universes. Temporal weapons that could undo a species' evolution, making them never have existed in the first place. These weapons remain unused, Jang continued, because we are not interested in conquest or genocide. But if any alien government attempts further aggression against humanity, we will escalate our response accordingly. Dr. Sung-ho Bae stepped forward to present what was perhaps the most chilling revelation. He was a quiet man who had spent his career studying alien biology, but his recent work had taken a darker turn. The biological weapons used at Kepler 442 were designed to be reversible, he explained. The Vexthari affected by our neural restructuring agents can be cured with appropriate treatment. However, we also possess permanent versions of these weapons. He showed images of viral organisms that looked like microscopic machines. These can rewrite an entire species' genetic code within a single generation. We could turn the warrior Vexthari into a peaceful agricultural race permanently. We could modify Drakmor physiology to make them incapable of space travel. We could alter luminar energy patterns to limit their consciousness to simple tasks. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity possessed the power to reshape other species according to their own preferences. "Why tell us this?" asked Gorthak, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral So-ra Kim answered, "Because we want you to understand what restraint looks like. We could have used these weapons from the beginning. We could have eliminated every threat to humanity without giving you the chance to surrender. Instead, we chose to demonstrate our capabilities in the hope that reason would prevail." Ambassador Taemin opened the final document. "These are humanity's new terms for galactic coexistence. They are not negotiable. The terms were simple but absolute. Humanity would establish colonies wherever they chose, without restriction or oversight from alien governments. All alien military forces would maintain a minimum distance of 5 light-years from any human system. Any coordinated military action against humanity by multiple species would trigger what humans called Protocol 7, the systematic elimination of every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy." "Protocol 7? Bright flame flickered nervously. "What does that mean exactly?" General Jang's expression remained perfectly calm. "It means we stop treating other species as potential partners and start treating them as obstacles to be removed. We have contingency plans for the complete conquest or elimination of every major alien civilization. These plans can be implemented within 72 hours if necessary." The aliens exchanged worried glances. The humans were not bluffing. The evidence of their capabilities was scattered across space in the form of 3,000 destroyed ships. "Surely some accommodation can be reached," pleaded Gorthak. "Some middle ground between your expansion and our security concerns." "You had 50 years to find middle ground," So-ra replied coldly. "You chose ultimatums and invasion fleets instead. Now you will accept our terms or face the consequences of refusing them." Zith-Ara, her behavior still modified by human biological agents, nodded enthusiastically. "These terms seem entirely reasonable. Humanity has shown great mercy in allowing us to continue existing as independent species." Her words sent chills through the other alien representatives. They realized that the Vexthari Queen was no longer capable of disagreeing with human proposals. The biological weapon had made her physically incapable of opposing humanity's interests. "How do we know you won't simply exterminate us when it becomes convenient?" asked Admiral Golseth of the Tarkin Confederation. Taemin looked at him with something resembling pity. Because we are not you. Humanity has never committed genocide, never enslaved entire species, never destroyed civilizations for convenience. We want coexistence, but only on terms that guarantee our security and freedom. And if we refuse these terms? Gorthak asked, though he already knew the answer. Then you will join the 3,000 ships at Kepler 442, Sora said simply. We gave diplomacy 50 years to work. We gave the peace talks every chance to succeed. You chose violence instead. Now you live with the consequences of that choice. The signing ceremony took place in complete silence. One by one, alien representatives added their signatures to documents that effectively ended their species' dominance of the galaxy. The age of alien empires was over, replaced by a new order with humanity at its center. As the delegates filed out of the conference room, Hyunwoo Lee approached Ambassador Tae Min with a final intelligence report. 6 months had passed since the Kepler 442 battle, and the galaxy had settled into an uneasy peace. On the surface, it appeared that the alien races had accepted humanity's terms, but beneath the diplomatic facades, some civilizations still plotted. Resistance. Colonial Administrator Kyung-Soo Han stood on the observation deck of New Busan Station, watching as the 17th human colony ship approached the system's third planet. This world had been declared off-limits by the old Galactic Council, designated as a buffer zone between alien territories. Now it would become home to 2 million human settlers. Any interference from the locals? Asked his assistant, Hai Wan, as she reviewed the latest security reports. None, Kyung-Soo replied. The Vexthari patrol ships maintain their 5 light-year distance religiously. The Drakmor have withdrawn their monitoring stations entirely. Even the independent systems are giving us a wide berth. Through the viewing ports, he could see the construction ships laying the foundation for humanity's newest city. Massive atmospheric. Processors were already beginning to transform the planet's thin air into something humans could breathe comfortably. Within a year, this barren world would be green with earth plants and bustling with human activity. Admiral Min Ho Sung, promoted after his service at Kepler 442, patrolled the expanding human frontier aboard his new flagship, the Seoul-class Dreadnought Gwangju. These massive vessels represented the latest in human military technology, incorporating systems that made their previous ships look primitive by comparison. Contact on the long-range sensors, reported his tactical officer, Commander Su Jin. Drakmor heavy cruiser, maintaining exactly 5 light-years distance as required by the treaty. Min Ho nodded. This had become routine. Alien ships shadowed human expansion fleets, but never came close enough to be considered threatening. They watched from a distance like scavengers following a predator, hoping for scraps but afraid to approach. Any change in their behavior pattern? He asked. None, sir. Same as always. They follow us for a few hours, then withdraw when we establish our security perimeter. The psychological impact of humanity's victory had proven more devastating than the physical destruction. On dozens of alien worlds, populations struggled with depression and feelings of helplessness. Species that had dominated the galaxy for millions of years now lived in constant fear of humanity's next move. Dr. In Guk Nam, humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, studied the reports from various worlds with growing concern. His office on Luna Base was filled with data tablets containing psychiatric evaluations of alien populations. The Vexthari are showing signs of species-wide trauma, he reported to the Colonial Council via video link. Even those not directly affected by our biological weapons display symptoms of learned helplessness. Their warrior culture has completely collapsed. Is this a problem we need to address? Asked Councillor Park from New Geneva. Not from a security standpoint, Inguk replied, but we may be looking at the cultural extinction of entire civilizations. They're losing the will to maintain their own societies. On Earth, this news was met with mixed reactions. Some humans felt guilty about the psychological devastation they had caused. Others argued that the aliens had brought this fate upon themselves by choosing aggression over coexistence. Ambassador Ji-Hae Choi had established humanity's new diplomatic corps in a building that overlooked the ruins of the old United Nations headquarters. The symbolism was intentional. The age of human supplication to other powers was over, replaced by an era of human authority. The Tarkin Confederation has requested permission to establish a trade route through the Vega sector, reported her aide, Jun Ho. They're offering very favorable terms. Of course they are, Ji-Hai replied. Approve the request, but make sure they understand that the route exists at our pleasure. Any disruption of human commerce will result in immediate closure and potential military action. This had become the new pattern of galactic diplomacy. Alien governments no longer negotiated with humanity as equals. They requested permission, offered tribute, and accepted whatever terms humans chose to give them. The relationship had become one of patron and client, with humanity clearly in the dominant position. The Vexthari presented a special case. Queen Zithara arrived at Earth aboard a ship that was escorted by human destroyers rather than her own guards. The biological weapon that had affected her people had fundamentally altered their society in ways that even surprised human scientists. Ambassador Choi, she said, her mandibles clicking in patterns that indicated extreme deference. My people wish to offer their services as agricultural specialists for your new colonies. We have extensive experience in terraforming and ecosystem management. Ji-Hee studied the former warrior queen with a mixture of pity and unease. The Vexithari had once been the most feared military force in the galaxy. Now they offered to work as farmers for the species they had once threatened to exterminate. We will consider your proposal, Ji-Hai replied. However, we require guarantees that your people will remain permanently pacified. Any return to aggressive behavior will be met with more permanent biological modifications. Of course, Zithara agreed enthusiastically. Violence is counterproductive to galactic harmony. My people understand this now. Intelligence Director Sung-Hoon Kwon managed humanity's vast surveillance network from a facility buried beneath the Swiss Alps. His operatives now held positions of influence in every major alien government, not through infiltration but through placement as advisors whose presence was accepted rather than welcomed. Director, reported his deputy, Young Mi, we're detecting increased military communications between the Drakmor Empire and the Stellar Consortium. They appear to be discussing joint defensive measures. Sung-Hoon reviewed the intercepted messages with interest. Despite the crushing defeat at Kepler 442, some alien governments still harbored hopes of resisting human expansion. They whispered about secret weapons, hidden fleets, and alliance networks that might somehow challenge humanity's dominance. Probability assessment? He asked. Low threat level, Young Mi replied. Their combined military capabilities are less than 10% of what we faced at Kepler 442. Even if they achieve perfect coordination, they lack the technology to pose a serious challenge. Monitor their activities closely, Seung-Hoon ordered. When they inevitably move against us, we want to be ready with an appropriate response. Engineer Bo-Ra Han led the development team responsible for humanity's next-generation weapons systems. Her laboratory on Titan had become the most classified facility in human space, where scientists worked on technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics even further. The temporal displacement cannons are ready for field testing, she reported to General Jiang via encrypted communication. We can now remove targets from the timeline entirely, making them never have existed in the first place. Effectiveness against large formations, Jiang asked. A single shot can erase an entire fleet from history. The enemy ships, their crews, and even the memory of their construction simply cease to exist. From the universe's perspective, they were never built. Such weapons represented the ultimate expression of human technological superiority. While alien scientists still struggled to understand the basic principles behind quantum cascade torpedoes, humanity had moved on to technologies that manipulated the fundamental structure of reality itself. The test of these new weapons came sooner than expected. The Drakmor Empire and Stellar Consortium, believing they had developed countermeasures to human technology, launched a joint attack on the human colony at Kepler 186. Fleet Admiral Jae Sung-Yu received the alert while reviewing expansion plans in his office aboard New Seoul Station. The alien force was substantial, nearly 500 ships using what their intelligence suggested were new shield configurations and defensive systems. Deploy the Gwangju and her escort squadron, he ordered. Admiral Sung has full authorization to field test our latest defensive systems. Min-Ho received his orders with grim satisfaction. The aliens had learned nothing from Kepler 442. They still believed that numerical superiority and conventional tactics could overcome human technological advantages. All ships, Prepare for combat, he broadcast to his squadron. We will demonstrate the consequences of breaking humanity's peace terms. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. The temporal displacement cannons fired once, and 437 alien ships simply ceased to exist. They were not destroyed in any conventional sense. They were removed from the timeline entirely, as if they had never been built in the first place. The remaining enemy vessels found themselves alone in space, their allies having vanished without trace. Their own records showed no evidence that the missing ships had ever existed. The psychological impact was devastating. How do you fight an enemy that can erase you from history? This is Admiral Sung of the Earth Defense Force, Minho broadcast to the surviving ships. You have violated the terms of the Nexus Prime Accords by attacking a human colony. Your governments will face the consequences of this decision. The response was swift and absolute. Within 72 hours, human fleets had blockaded both the Drakmor homeworld and the Stellar Consortium's capital system.